Hey there kids, it's your good buddy Uncle Ben here with the third installment of FAQ You. Hope that you guys have been doing well this month. I've been great. I've just been extremely busy teaching a lot and doing a ton of work in the studio. As always, you guys have submitted some great questions for me to answer, so we're going to spend some time today talking about some of my favorite music books as well as some of the best Kemper profiles out there that you can get. But before we do, let's stop in at Uncle Ben's boombox and see what's shaking. This week I've been listening to what I think is going to be the most important record of the year and one of the most important pieces of music from this side of the millennium, which is Verlorener, the new project by my main man, Emil Werstler. A lot of you guys might know Emil as the former guitar player of Doth and Chimera. I know Emil as a really great friend of mine who I got to know while I was playing guitar and tour with Whitechapel. We were touring with Chimera. In the years that he spent since his departure from Chimera, Verlorener has been Emil's main project, and he spent the last couple of years putting together the songs, producing them, recording them, finding the best team of musicians to play on them, and all that stuff. I absolutely can't describe to you what this record sounds like because it's simply without comparison. I guess the best way to sum up what it sounds like is imagine if Depeche Mode built a time machine, went back in time and got Django Reinhardt and brought him to the present day, where he met up with Trent Reznor in an opium den and they recorded an album that was used as a soundtrack for a Christopher Nolan movie. This record is completely saturated with everything that makes Emil who he is. There's lines and chord progressions that do remind you of really dark, menacing gypsy jazz stuff. There's all these industrial and electronic elements on there, heavily distorted drums and stuff, synthesizer like you hear on Depeche Mode records. Even some of the drum parts and some of the beats and stuff remind me of something you might hear on like a Death Grips album. And it's got that really cool quality to it where, yes, it's an instrumental record made by a guitar player, but it's not an instrumental guitar record. It's just incredibly dark and unique music that happens to have been played on a guitar. He's got live shows and videos and stuff planned out for this as well, which I'm extremely excited to see. And like many great works of art, this was entirely self-produced by Emil, and every dime that's gone into recording it, which is quite a few dimes, have come out of his pocket. And this is where you come in, because you can help contribute to one of the absolute greatest and most unique pieces of music that has come out in the past 20 or 30 years. Emil has set up an Indiegogo campaign for this project to get it off the ground, and you can help contribute to it by clicking on the link below. I'll put that down in the description box. On his Indiegogo page, there's all sorts of different levels of donation that come with different perks, like a vinyl of the record, or a t-shirt or a hoodie, whatever. There's all kinds of different packages that you can invest in. The record is due out around September 2017, so before that time arrives, let's make sure that Emil has all the funding that he needs to get this project off the ground. As consumers, every dollar that we spend is basically a vote saying, I want more of this product. And I definitely want more of this. We need more amazing, ambitious, self-produced, uncompromising art out there in the music world. And by all of us pitching together a couple of bucks, we're essentially putting a whole bunch of votes out into the universe that we want more great work like this to continue. So yeah, Verlorener. Check it out, contribute, get pumped. First question today comes from the Puerto Rican beast, Jonathan Ayala. He asks, any music theory or technique book? There are indeed a handful of great music books that I've encountered along my way to help me scale the path of musical Mount Olympus. If you're just talking strictly technique and practice tips, one of the books that's helped me out the most is John Petrucci's Rock Discipline. This has been in publication since Jesus was riding dinosaurs. This book is basically filled cover to cover with information on how to practice basically any technique that you would ever use as a guitar player, whether that's alternate picking, or strumming, or economy picking, or sweep picking, tapping. Pretty much anything is presented with all kinds of great examples that are in tab and standard notation for you to practice, again, virtually anything. String skipping, different chord voicings, it's all here. So yeah, if you're looking to up your technique and practice game, definitely get Rock Discipline. Another one that's a great all-purpose sort of technique book that also ups the ante with some cool ideas about scale positions and learning the fingerboard is Guthrie Govan's Creative Guitar Series. I think that there's two of these. The first one is a little bit more basic. The second one here, again, it covers more technique and theory and stuff like that. But this has all kinds of good stuff and it's super well written. What do you expect coming from Guthrie Govan? This may seem like more of a niche genre kind of thing, but one book that helped me out a lot with my playing, especially when it comes to fingerstyle playing, is Pumping Nylon by Scott Tennant. Scott Tennant is one of the guitar players in the fantastic Los Angeles Guitar Quartet, or LAGQ as they're sometimes called. I got this book whenever I first started studying classical guitar years and years ago, and it helped me out a ton. It's got all kinds of great practice etudes and exercises you can do. It's the kind of thing where I see the efforts that I put into this book and all my classical guitar playing that I did back then. I can see all of those efforts bleeding into my fingerstyle guitar playing, my bass playing, even like my thump technique and stuff like that I do on guitar. It's something that has benefited everything that I've done on the guitar. I guess I'd say the only catch about this book, and maybe they've changed it since then because this is an older copy of it, it's all just in standard notation. There's no tab or anything in here. So if you're looking for a good excuse to work on your sight reading, here you go. Another book that I'll put in here is kind of a wild card. Not necessarily one that I've learned a ton of stuff from exactly, but it has kind of got my gears turning, I think, in different ways than it ever would have before, is The Advancing Guitarist by Mick Goodrick. My good buddy Eric Reason was kind of one of my musical mentors early on. He showed me a lot of great new artists and players and books and stuff that I never would have heard of. Actually, he's the guy that introduced me to LA Guitar Quartet. And he got me this book because he said it was absolutely mind-blowing and introduced him to a whole lot of cool concepts. I think for the first 10 years or so that I had this book, I thought that it was complete gibberish, because at times it really does feel like this book was written by some kind of genius musician that was in the middle of a fever dream. It's not really organized whatsoever. It's a really crazy book, but there's some super interesting ideas at work in here. So yeah, it's a bit esoteric, it's a bit dense, a little weird to get through, but you might find some cool stuff in here. But all the books I've been talking about, I think the most important one that I've ever found is this one right here, Music Lesson by Victor Wooten. A lot of you guys already know Victor Wooten as being one of the greatest bass players that's ever walked the face of the earth. But don't be mistaken, this is not a bass guitar player book. It's not even really a guitar player book either, it's just a musician book. I would describe it really as being music philosophy more than anything. If you flip through this book, you're not going to see any, tabs for exercises, you're not going to see any etudes or practice routines or anything like that. The whole thing is actually a novel where a guy meets a kid that teaches him all kinds of various musical lessons throughout the chapters of the book. It really is just an unbelievable book that I think will help absolutely anybody with an open mind into becoming a better musician and probably just a better person in general. I can basically guarantee, no matter who you are, you will pick up something from this book that will help you out along the way. Absolutely amazing, life-changing book, really. Can't recommend it enough. If you're going to buy one book after watching this, get this, The Music Lesson by Victor Wooten. Let's move on, shall we? My man Michael Osterman asks, what are some of your favorite Kemper profiles? Good question. So as most of you guys know, I use the Kemper profiling amp for pretty much everything that I do. And I guess I've had it for probably about 4 years or so now. And along the way, like most people, I've tried out a billion different Kemper profiles. So here's some of my favorite makers of these profiles. I'll tell you what I use them for too. One of the real deciding factors for me getting a Kemper profiler in the first place is hearing some profile demos that were done by a company called The Amp Factory. So as soon as I got my Kemper, I bought a ton of their profiles and I've been using them ever since. Mainly for things in the, rock sort of spectrum. Their Voxes, their Marshalls, their Fenders, all of those amps sound absolutely ridiculously great. There's one profile of theirs that I have used probably more than any other profile I've ever had for the Kemper. And it's just called The Amp Factory JCM 800 Drive. If you've watched anything that I've ever made, you've heard this profile. It's just a great big ass thick Marshall JCM 800 sound. Also got to mention some of my all-time favorite Marshall sounds I've ever gotten from the Kemper are from that Top Jimmy Brown Sound profile pack. I've got a whole video demoing these things on my channel. It is essentially just the most perfect clone of the Eddie Van Halen Brown sound that I have ever heard, which is like my all-time favorite guitar tone. So whenever I got those packs from Top Jimmy, I was just immediately in hog heaven. They are an absolute blast to play through. Some of the most fun that I've ever had with the Kemper. He also does stuff other than just Van Halen tones too, though. He's got a huge sample of amps from Friedman that sound amazing. I've got a bunch of those too. They sound great. He's got a whole bunch of other Marshalls too, like the Slash, Appetite for Destruction Marshall, all kinds of great stuff. Some really good Fender amps on there too. So yeah, Top Jimmy. He's making some of the best profiles I have ever heard. Also, when it comes to great rock and clean sounds, I can't not mention Michael Britt and all his wonderful profile packs. He's got a bunch of Marshalls that sound fantastic, but one of his profiles that I use the most is this Mesa Lone Star that he made. When it comes to high gain, really tight, aggressive heavy tones, I think that the Sin Mix profiles are above and beyond the best ones out there. His profiles are by far the most tight and aggressive and just mean sounding profiles that I've ever heard for the Kemper. They record excellent as well. This is his profile of the Ola England Randall Satan amp. It just has that grind, you know? They've got that really great, bright, high-end sort of sizzle on the top of them that I find a lot of Kemper profiles lack. I think a lot of guys, especially the high-gain stuff, it's just really dark sounding. His Randall Satan sounds awesome. I also use, probably the one I use the most is actually, believe it or not, is his profile of a Bugera Tri-Rec. Who knew, right? But that profile sounds ridiculous. Anything that you've heard me do that's like high gain or really punishing, it's probably been that profile, Bugera Tri-Rec. His Mesa Boogie profiles also sound really good too. His Triple Rec sounds really mean. That's the best Triple Rec profile for high gain sounds that I've ever used for the Kemper. And yes, they gent. Those are all commercial profile packs that you can buy, and I'll put links for those down in the video description below, so if you're interested in getting some of those, be sure to go and visit their sites and purchase them up. However, if you're broke as a joke, there's also some really good stuff that you can get online on the Rig Exchange. I've had a lot of luck with profiles from user Are You Serious? He's put up a lot of really great sounding profiles for guitar and bass, so I recommend checking out some of his stuff if you want stuff that's cheap as free. So there you go, guys, a few more questions down. Thank you all so much for watching and contributing some great questions. Be sure to drop me some comments below with whatever questions you would like to see answered on future installments of FAQ. You guys can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Ben Eller Guitars, or go like my Facebook fan page over on facebook.com/Uncle Ben Eller. Or if you'd like to book some one-on-one Skype lessons, you can always drop me a line, benellerguitars@gmail.com. And again, be sure to click on the link below to visit the Indiegogo page for Emil Werstler's Verlorener project. It's going to absolutely blow your mind when you hear this stuff. Drop him a couple bucks. He's done an amazing piece of work for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for another episode of FAQ next month. Cheers.